Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout as we look ahead to Fantasy Premier League Game Week 22 and the potential and real life doubles and blanks ahead. It's General's Orders Times featuring FPL General aka Mark and myself Joe. Mark, welcome. How are you?
I'm very well, Joe. Had a nice weekend. FA Cup action, some big results, and some a bit more clarity. I guess not a huge amount, but we've got a better idea at least of what's around the corner, and we can start formulating some plans. So yeah, looking forward to this one to more so just to try and figure out my own plans as well. Having a chat.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we spoke a bit on air, but just off air just before about some of the games. I was particularly impressed with Maidstone because they were terrible when I saw them in real life against Yeovil earlier this season. But yes, as you said, for FPL managers, we've got a little bit more clarity, and we sort of know what's up in the air as well about the blanks and doubles. So we're going to try and get our head around that. See how the FA Cup fifth round draw might influence things there. What blanks and doubles are ahead, but also really crucially as well, we've got some fixtures coming up as well. We've got a double in Game Week 25, could be an even bigger double in 25. We've got blank game weeks confirmed in Game Week 26. We've got blanks coming up in Game Week 29, doubles in 34, 37. Lots to plan about. Before we have a quick look, a usual look at the sort of season ticker to get our head round some of this. How was very briefly? How did Game Week 21 go?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief because it was a
Yeah.
red arrow.
Okay.
52 points, I think it
Yeah.
was, dropped from 65k to 98k. So basically, no Gabriel, didn't captain Palmer, went Saka instead. So
Yeah.
we briefly move on, and
Yeah.
hopefully, plenty of green ones to come with these blanks and doubles.
Yeah. You and I are still very similar in the rankings as well. I'm around that as well. There. So
Good place to be. Good place to be.
it's good. It's good. I feel okay with that. It's still within the top 100k. That'll do this time of year. Okay, let's have a look at the season ticker because this shows a little bit about what we know, and it shows that in Game Week 25, Man City and Brentford double. It shows that obviously in Game Week 26, the League Cup final is influencing things. So Tottenham and Chelsea, Liverpool and Luton are blanks there. So we think that Game Week 25 is when Liverpool and Luton will move there because basically a lot of midweeks coming up, Liverpool are going to be busy. They're in a lot of cup competitions, Europe, etc. So it would make sense to move it there. That's the sensible thing. So we don't know whether that will happen, but that is the sensible way that will go. Meanwhile, we can see here that Game Week 29 is when the FA Cup sixth round, is it? But it's the sixth round takes place. So then we're going to get some blanks then. I think I've got that right, haven't I? So the fifth round draw is, and whatever happens in that fifth round draw will decide who blanks in Game Week 29. And then, of course, we have the doubles coming up in 34, 37. I haven't sorted this by difficulty. I've just done it alphabetically because it's hard to say. So, for example, if I did it by difficulty, Brighton would be top, but Brighton don't have a double that we know of coming up. They definitely as we'll discuss in a minute, they'll be among the teams that are probably going to get a blank in Game Week 29, so that might reduce them a bit. So, it's a bit of a patchwork quilt of fixtures coming up. Lots to get our head around. What's your immediate thoughts of this?
Yeah, again, the thing that people are going to hear a lot this week and read a lot about is everybody's team is different. We're at a different starting point. We've all got different players. Some have more chips than others. Some may have even played the second wild card already. So it's I think the most important point, and this is probably my main order of the week, is remember that it is your team, and your team is very different to everyone else's. I'm sure people watching this like me. I like listening to podcasts. I like watching FPL content on YouTube. I like to get different ideas, but the most important thing is make sure you're not just blindly following someone else's advice, or what often happens in FPL these days is a popular strategy emerges and 90% of people follow that, but it doesn't mean it's the right one. And just keep that in mind, and don't be afraid to plow your own canoe and go a different path, because it might just be the right path. So that's the main thing to say first of all. In terms of my initial thoughts are, again, caveat being that I just wildcarded recently in Game Week 20, so I don't really want to wildcard anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at, at least around Game Week 30, possibly onwards for my second wildcard of the season, and then the bench boost probably sometime after that.
Yeah.
So in terms of these, and I think I'm a bit like you as well, Joe. I tend to be a bit more short-term viewed, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't go deep diving weeks and weeks ahead
Yeah.
because things will change. We don't have the full picture. So in my current setup, when you look at the blanks in Game Week 26, I'm not as heavily invested as other people in teams like Tottenham. I don't have Richarlison.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not heavily invested in Liverpool. I've just got Trent.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's other teams out there that maybe have a Richarlison, a Darrow, and a Jota, maybe still have Salah, and maybe more investment in Chelsea as well than I have. And obviously, there's a case for some teams for a free hit in 26, but my initial thought is I will be able to survive that one with players like Garnacho,
Mm-hmm.
etc., and plenty of transfers before that as well. We'll look at it in a bit more detail soon, but Game Week 29 could be a bit of carnage.
Mm-hmm.
So early thoughts are, number one, I'm going to be flexible, possible free hit 29.
Mm-hmm.
But if a couple of shocks happen in cup games and we get a couple of extra fixtures, the free hit can always be kept maybe for a double game week later, 34, 37. So short term, focus on 25, get through 26 with free transfers, and start rolling the transfer soon if I can to have two frees as often as possible as the information emerges. So that's just some early thoughts.
Yeah, I mean that's very very similar to my plans. Really, I'm focusing on 25 and 26 at the moment because so much is up in the air with Game Week 29 and beyond. And so for me, I'm looking at beefing up my Man City contingent. I know they double. I know they actually play in 26 as well, so they're a very handy team to have for that group of fixtures. Liverpool as well. I have no Liverpool, so I want to start from Game Week 24, which is when Liverpool have Burnley at home. So they've got two tough fixtures. So it's really Game Week 24. I'm going to start looking at Liverpool, and I'll try and save a transfer 23 so I can get a couple in 24 and then maybe get another one 25. And that will leave me in a sort of a no man's land, really. I'll be able to get a credible team out in 26, but I might only Battlefield 9. I might Battlefield 10 or 11 with a hit. So that's the way I think I'll probably play it, because I have Porro, for example, Palmer, they're blanking. I'll have two or three, probably two Liverpool players. And so I have to look at it like that and see how I'm going to navigate that. And I think, and then it's Game Week 29. Like with you, I'm open to having a free hit then, but I'm also open to keeping the free hit. I'll just have to see what I'm doing. But one thing I'm not going to do is remove good players, and I don't know whether this might be another one of your orders coming up, but I'm not removing good players with good fixtures because another good player has a double game week in about 3 weeks' time. So I'm not gonna shun City because they're likely to have a blank in Game Week 29 when they're so fabulous and having a double and playing 26. So that's where I'm at with it. I'm sort of up in the air, but sort of taking it a chunk at a time. 25, 26, then I'll worry about 29, and then I'll worry about what I'm going to do with the wild card and 34 and things like that.
Yeah, you teed me up nicely there for another order. It's kind of, my experience of the game is over the years, I do it and almost every FPL manager does it. You fall into the trap of having just laser focus for blanks and doubles, and you ignore good players, good fixtures, good teams who maybe just have a kind of straightforward run through, no blanks, no doubles, etc. Or even a team who maybe does have one blank but no doubles in the near future. Tottenham comes to mind. So I feel like, another order is don't ignore players just because they have a blank in the future. So Richarlison ticks this box because if you look at it, you might think, right, I don't want to go to Tottenham because they blank in 26. But before that, Richarlison has Brentford, Everton, Brighton, Wolves. And then on the other side of it, I think he plays in 29 as well. One of the very few teams that does play. So if it's a case of, if you look at Richarlison over a period of 7 or 8 game weeks, and if it's a case of you field 8 players instead of 9 players in a blank game week, it's 1 player. But how many points could Richarlison score over 6 or 7 game weeks if you think he's a really good FPL pick, which I do. So keep that in mind as well. You said, don't sell good players just because there's a blank coming up. But also don't be afraid to buy players if they've got a blank coming up, because you can get the points on the board beforehand, and the blank game week might not hurt too much even if you don't have 11.
And I can see certain traps starting to form, which could end up becoming, you could get lucky and it could work out. But one of the traps, if we look, let's look at Game Week 29, because that's a potential trap. So there could be likely to be lots of blanks there. And so there's certain teams that will definitely play. So, for example, Burnley are definitely playing. So if you spend some game weeks stocking up on Burnley players, then yeah, you've got 2 to 3 Burnley players that play in Game Week 29. But you've also got 2 and 3 Burnley players in your team for the rest of the time. And they might not even do well in Game Week 29 as well. So it's the FA Cup 5th round, which is going to decide a lot of these things. So I've got that up on screen at the moment. And this just shows that some things are up in the air. There's some replays there. I know we were talking yesterday. I thought Newport were going to be into the round at one point. Manchester United did prevail with their... do you see Anthony's amazing celebration as he scored against Newport? I thought he just won the World Cup or something.
Yeah. It was a bit bizarre in that fixture.
Yeah, but yeah, the scenes are it's Blackburn or Wrexham versus Newcastle. So you would think Newcastle would prevail from that. Chelsea or Aston Villa versus Leeds or Plymouth. Lots of ors here. That's an interesting one. That's going to influence a lot of our decisions, because obviously, do we keep Watkins or not? You've got Chelsea assets as well. Bournemouth against Leicester. That's up in the air. I don't know. Leicester could win that. Leicester are flying high in the Championship. Liverpool versus Watford or Southampton. You would imagine Liverpool would win that. Bristol City or Nottingham Forest against Manchester United. That's tough. I don't know who would prevail in that one. Wolves against Brighton, and that's another annoying one. I know as a Brighton fan, when I saw that draw, I thought, oh, great. A quite good, very similar Premier League side. It's not getting a terrible side or a good side. It's just getting a very similar side. So either of them could prevail. Sheffield Wednesday, Coventry versus Mason. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't bother us. And then Luton against Man City. You would imagine Man City would prevail there. So I've got an overview here that Neil at Fantasy Football Scout kindly did an article on. And that shows that Burnley and Brentford and Fulham against Spurs are definitely on. So what you were talking about with Richarlison could be handy. That might make me consider keeping Porro, for example, maybe, if Maddison doesn't steal too many of his set pieces. Arsenal against Chelsea, as I mentioned, that match, if Chelsea beat Aston Villa in the FA Cup 4th round replay and then Leeds or Plymouth in the 5th round, Arsenal v Chelsea be off. That's bad for us as FPL managers, because we've got the likes of Saka, Gabriel and players like that. Brighton v Man City, that looks that's right for a blank. Even if Wolves beat Brighton, Man City to beat Luton. So you have to have this combination for Brighton against City not to be a blank. You need this combination of Wolves beating Brighton and Luton beating Man City. So that's unlikely. And that's annoying as well, because Brighton are top of the ticker. People have got you've got a Stupinan, I have. People have got João Pedro. Some people have got, obviously we've all got City assets. So this is bad news. So that's the way it's going. And we've got various other ones on the screen here. If Newcastle beat Blackburn or Wrexham, that's highly likely. Then Crystal Palace v Newcastle's off. I've got Anderson on my bench, so kiss goodbye to him. Everton v Liverpool, that could be off. Luton v Nottingham Forest if Luton beat Man City, or Nottingham Forest beat Bristol City. So that's likely to be off, because Nottingham Forest you would imagine would beat Bristol City, but you never know. Manchester United versus Sheffield United if Manchester United beat Bristol City or Nottingham Forest. And then you've got West Ham versus Aston Villa, and that's like that Chelsea game. If Aston Villa beat Chelsea in the FA Cup 4th round replay and then Leeds or Plymouth in the 5th round, West Ham v Aston Villa's off. Bad news if you've got Bowen then, if that's the case. And then Wolves v Bournemouth, if Wolves beat Brighton, and Bournemouth can beat Leicester as well. So some more permutations there. There's going to be a maximum number of 7 blanks. So we could end up with 3 fixtures. and then the minimum number of blanks is 1. So that's if someone wins the lottery and can predict insane results there. So this shows what we're looking at in Gameweek 29. It could be free hittable, couldn't it? We might be okay. And when I say we, I mean I'm using the word we anyone's team. You look at your team and think, okay, I'm okay for 29, and you might look at your team and go, oh my god, I've only got 2 players.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to the just being flexible because it's still unknown. We know, it's very rare that every favorite will win the round 5 fixture or whatever it is. So it's 1 or 2 shocks or unexpected results. And it's not even big shocks. A team that has a 40% chance of winning, if they win, it obviously changes the FPL landscape quite significantly. And one of the frustrating things here is the Chelsea Villa replay. It's not this week. It's not until the 7th. So we've got 2 more FPL game weeks before we know the outcome of that one. So between game week 23 and 24 is when we'll know the winner of Chelsea Villa in the Cup, which has a direct impact again on 29. It'll impact players like Watkins, but I think it can also impact Arsenal, so players like Saka. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about my scenario in my strike force at the moment. For example, I've got Watkins and I've got Solanke. I don't know when Solanke's double is going to be, and I don't know yet if Watkins will play in 29. So go back to the top of that list. You've got Brentford, who have a double in 25 and a fixture in 29. So Ivan Toney's very attractive. He's very useful for this period as a player who can just play in every game week. But I'm not in a rush to go there. So I think initially, the fixtures are not great for Brentford short term. They're not great in the double either. But I feel like buying myself some time, figure out if Watkins plays in 29. If we find out at some point Solanke has a double game week, and then, after that Chelsea Villa game, I'll be in a better position to decide who do I sell for Ivan Toney. Is it Watkins or is it Solanke? So little things like that you can start thinking about, thinking ahead for those kind of scenarios. You mentioned as well, people will fall into traps with blanks and doubles. And one I'm seeing already, I've listened to a few people this week already on podcasts and stuff, thinking about selling Cole Palmer because, Chelsea have the blank and, could blank again in 29. But, strip it back. Palmer didn't play. I don't think he started a game until game week 7. I think he's got over 100 FPL points, takes penalties. Just, forget about his price. He's a 10, 11 million pound FPL asset this season in the way he's performing. So my advice would be, hold on to him if you can. And even if it's on the bench in those game weeks where he doesn't play.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I thought I saw some comments from Pochettino about him just saying that he just wants him on the pitch, wherever he is as a false 9 or out on the wing or in attacking midfield role. He just wants him on the pitch because he's a goal scorer and he can make things happen. And he is the talisman. Did a talisman video about that, and I think we spoke about it last week about why I didn't go for Palmer, because annoyingly I didn't do the research before I made that decision for the captaincy. But he is the talisman. If they're going to do well, he's going to score, and he's on penalties. And they've got Raheem Sterling, who is the master of winning penalties. So I think any game he could get a penalty. Yeah, he's got, Liverpool next, but then Wolves and Crystal Palace. You're not going to remove him for them. And then Man City, and then this blank, and then you got Brentford, Newcastle. All of these game week 30, people might remove him even. He's got Burnley at home. Arsenal in game week 29. Even that game he could get a return. He's just not. He's not removable. He's so cheap as well. It's not like it's a £15 million player stinking up our teams.
Yeah, again, an example would be my setup. I've got a cheap Cole Palmer, but I've got an even cheaper Garnacho. And if I was desperate to free up a midfield spot for someone else, I'd definitely lose Garnacho first than Palmer, even if it means spending a little bit more across those 5 positions.
There was a tweet yesterday from Praz that I saw shared with you, and you went, "Oh, I'm reading this as you send it," and it was a very good because Praz is quite good at he takes this sort of helicopter view where he looks at the fixtures in advance, but he explains things quite well, and he just summed up in a tweet really what I was thinking. Really, so he was saying, having thought about it, the draw kills a free hit 25-26 to quite an extent for him. So he's very careful to say, don't do this, be prescriptive. For him, given how hard it will be to navigate Game Week 29 when we're talking about that potential huge blank, and Game Week 34, which is going to be a double game week. And then we've got a double game week in 37 as well. And feels he'll want to keep the free hit for that, but that's him. But it does show that could be the way many people think. So he thinks the viable options for him, and it could be for many other people as well, for the chips, would be this, what we were talking about, potential free hit in 29, and then to dead end the team into 34, and then wildcard in 35, and then bench boost in 37, because Game Week 37 could be a much bigger double game week. My only problem with that is that I don't like dead ending a team into Game Week 34, because I don't particularly like the concept of dead ending, because that implies that by 34 I've got a whole bunch of players that are rubbish, and that it's time for them to go. And I think with dead ending a team, I want to be careful who I dead end with. I want to dead end it, if I do, with good players. I've just happened to be going for other players that are more favourable, because we're starting to run out of fixtures by then. And then, or you could have other options here. You could dead end a team into 29, 30, wildcard in Game Week 31, then sort of free hit either in 34, 37. It gets quite complicated then. I personally like to wildcard and bench boost shortly afterwards, but it might be that a bench boost is better in Game Week 37. I don't know. So it's going to be really tricky for that. I don't like to leave a big gap, because by the time you wildcard set out for a bench boost, 6 weeks, I mean, half your players could be, in hospital by then.
Yeah, you want the bench boost as close as you can to the wild card. Again, just for people who are new to FPL this season, be careful that you can't wild card and bench boost in the same week. So you need to wild card, at least a week before you do that bench boost. Just going back to Praz's tweet there, I think he was sensible with his wording at the start. Killing the free hit 25, 26 to quite an extent.
Yeah.
So I've seen one or two teams in the last day or two where you could definitely make a strong case for a free hit in 26, because let's say you're on triple Liverpool already. Let's say you're on Porro and Richarlison. And if you've got a couple of other issues in your squad, if you're carrying a few injured players, maybe you're still carrying Haaland, for example, this just goes back to the point, don't watch us and think, right, I can't free hit in 26, because it might actually be very sensible for your squad. And yes, it might make future game weeks tricky, but we're all going to have tricky game weeks to navigate, and it could just shake out, fairly evenly over the long term anyway. So, just don't rule it out just because you'll see a lot of it this week. I think most content creators will say don't use your free hit in 26, but there will be one or two teams out there in most many leagues where they're very, very short of players, and you could just hit big in that week, and the game could be just as good as others, if not better. So keep that in mind as well.
I mean, another thought I had that I haven't seen anywhere else, because maybe it doesn't suit other content creators' teams or whatever, was that because I've got Alfie Doughty, my regular mention of Alfie Doughty, he doubles in 25, and because I'm going to be trying to get as many Liverpool players as I can, and I've got City players, so already I'm looking at sort of 7 doublers. I might even go for Ivan Toney, so I might even go that up to 8, and then so that means I bench Ollie Watkins, I bench, I don't know, Saka, say I bench Porro. You see where I'm coming from. I'll be benching these really good players. So the thought I had was, I hate the bench boost, so why not play the bench boost instead of triple captain? And I think I would get. I mean, say your triple captain got, if it was a really good one, you got an extra 15 points. So over the course of that, say you go for Haaland, but he ends up sort of not being quite right for one of the games or something like that. You end up with 15 points. Triple captain, you get an extra 15 points. Well, I'll easily make that on a bench boost. And then I can save the triple captain a bit further down the line. I don't have to worry about the bench boost. I think it was Az who accidentally played his bench boost. I sort of envy that, because his bench boost actually did okay that week by happenstance. And I thought, God, that's quite good. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I hate the bench boost as well. And again, it's another piece of advice. Be open to the bench boost. Don't be wedded to wildcard bench boost
Yeah.
shortly afterwards, because you can play it in a single game week at any point, as some people do successfully. You can play it in, like you say, a lot of people will probably end up triple captain, double game week 25,
Yeah.
especially if Haaland's okay. But if you've got a bench boost available as well, and like you say, if you're going to have players, very good players on the bench, Saka's, Watkins, etc.,
Yeah.
and if you've got a second playing goalkeeper, then you could score 15 to 20 points. And the other tip is, don't have high expectations for a bench boost, because it very rarely goes big. It's probably been quite a few years since we've had mega 150 plus bench boost game weeks. So again, it all comes back to people overvalue chips. We over plan for blanks and doubles. I always think over the course of a season, you score over 2,000 FPL points, maybe even 2,500 FPL points. 15 points, 12 to 15 points with one chip, it's not a season defining moment in the grand scheme of things. So don't overhype chips
No,
to,
definitely.
especially triple captain again. If you end up triple captain Haaland, most other people are going to captain him that game week anyway. So you're only gaining the 1/3,
Yeah.
whereas everyone else is getting double anyway. So yeah, don't let the
Definitely.
chips
I was just
influence things too
while we were
much.
talking, I just put my team up because I sort of forgot who I've got. But I mean, yeah, a realistic bench boost for me would be Dubravka, Solanke, Porro, and a Stupinan.
So it's pretty good.
It's really good, isn't it? I mean, I don't really want to bench well, Dubravka maybe, but I don't really want to bench that lot. So I'm sure those. You say Gabriel, clean sheet. God, I think about it. Anyway, no one else. Well, it's just me. That for my team that might work. So I'm not telling people to do that. I'm just saying for my team that might work.
Yeah.
But that's exactly
But
what you were saying. Be flexible and look at your own team.
yeah, the thing I like most about getting rid of the bench boost is then you're just looking at 11 players for the rest of the season. It when you still have the bench boost, it kind of shoehorns you sometimes, or restricts you from doing certain things because you think, right, I've got a weak spot on the bench here, I need to fix that, and that means I can't get a really good player in my 11.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep an open mind on the bench boost for sure.
Definitely. And I'll just finish off the bit with Praz's tweet because it was the last line that really got to me, really. So he's saying that personally he's going to stay flexible, but it was the bit at the end, which is the main thing that people need to focus on now, is how to efficiently navigate double game week 25 and blank game week 26 with free transfers. Now, that's probably not going to be possible for many people. I probably envisage I'll be taking at least a hit over that time. But I think with injuries and things like that happening, if you're going into this at least with the aim to only take one hit or no hits at all, I think that's probably a good place to be, because we're coming up to game week 22. That's 3 game weeks away. Game week 25, we should be able to use our transfers quite wisely towards what we want to do in game week 25 and 26 by keeping free transfers to a minimum. So I like that advice, really, because it's what we talk about at the top of the show, really. It's sort of take what's at hand and what we know. And we know there's a double game week, then we should know that there's a Liverpool-Luton double game week then as well.
Yeah, I just like the approach, and it's the way I've always played FPL. Play what's in front of you, play what you know, get the points on the board if you can, and there's always ways to get through future unknowns, especially when a lot of people will have a wild card, for example. I had a point there. It'll come back to me. Another order was coming through there, but I'll mention it in a wee while.
Okay. So what we're going to do in a bit is have a look at your bus team, so we can sort of put your thoughts together, and hopefully that'll help other people as well. Sort of draw everything that we've said together in future plans. But I know I was speaking to you before that you're looking at midfielders at the moment, and wondering whether to get any in or whether who goes, who stays. So I've done a table, and this is last 6 matches. I've called it FPL General's Game Week 22 midfield options. So some of these players are already in your team, some of them aren't. and a lot of these decisions may depend on who you want to captain, for example. So in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, De Bruyne is top from just his one start and his one cameo because he's got a goal and assist. So this shows that in his limited time, he's actually top here. Small sample because he's only played one and a bit games, but he created 4 chances in that period. And expected goal involvement delta of 1.25, which means he's slightly overperforming, but good players tend to overperform a bit. Richarlison's next. Minutes per expected goal involvement every 119 minutes. So that's every game-ish and a bit more. But he's had 6 goals from his 6 starts. Saka is next. So he's been doing really well. A lot of people are thinking of getting rid of him. Probably punishment for his blank. But the powers that be actually withdrew the fact that it was a home goal by Henderson. So Gabriel, in fact, I'm a Gabriel and Saka owner, Gabriel, in fact, got another goal, and it was assisted by Saka. So Saka would have got he could have even got bonus from that, but he got an assist, got the clean sheet point. He would have done all right. I'd have had a green arrow, not a small red arrow. So Saka's actually doing okay. Under the radar. Doku I put in here as well. Every minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty of 170 minutes. I don't know about you, but the Burnley game just screams Doku. It screams if Mahrez was around, they'd throw him on. It just screams Doku being there. Foden's just behind him in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement. So is Bowen with across his 6 starts, 2 goals and an assist. Jota, 4 goals and 3 assists. Minutes per expected goal involvement every 179 minutes. Huge overperformance. Expected goal involvement delta is +4. So he's overperformed, but good players tend to. Maddison as well. I put him in here because he's back. He should start getting starts now. 4 assists and a goal in his last 6 matches that he's played. Lots of options here. I mean, I want them all, but I can only have 5. And I can't get them all. So yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I've been trying to figure that out for about a week now. Currently have Palmer, Foden, Bowen, and Saka. So that's my starting point with Garnacho on the bench. So you mentioned the Man City Burnley fixture again. It just screams goals to me. Manchester City don't tend to blow teams away, but in recent memory, I think there's been quite a few 5-0 victories against Burnley, and arguably the weakest team in the league at the moment. So I've got Foden and I've got Alvarez up front as well. So I've got a third Manchester City spot, and it's really tricky because Haaland's just about ready, we think, to come back. We don't know for sure. Kevin De Bruyne has just come back, but didn't start the FA Cup game. And the game's on Wednesday, so with the deadline on Tuesday, team leaks are less likely. So I'm in a bit of a pickle. It's kind of, obviously Haaland's my priority when he's okay and when he's going to start. But if we don't get clarity on that before the deadline, then I'll probably just keep Alvarez for another week and go without Haaland. But then that opens the door to maybe getting De Bruyne instead this week, because I do have plenty of cash. I've got 9 million, so I can get Haaland and De Bruyne if I want over the next 2 game weeks. But the problem is I would need to sell a good asset like a Bowen or a Saka. Now, people might argue Saka's not a good asset at the moment, but I still rate him as one. Good underlying numbers, good team, good fixture. So it's going to take a lot for me to go Saka to De Bruyne. And I don't think I would be able to afford Haaland if I went Bowen to De Bruyne. So I need to be careful with the funds. So it comes down to Saka to De Bruyne if I don't get Haaland this game week. And there's always the option of rolling a transfer and just being content with Foden and Alvarez and hoping that they both play significant minutes. So where I'm at currently on current information, Monday morning, Monday afternoon, is being content with Foden and Alvarez and maybe waiting another week for Haaland. And that would mean keeping Saka and rolling a transfer. Because it kind of goes back to there's still unknowns. This landscape is not set in stone just yet. There's players away, injured, coming back. There will be more injuries to come. There'll be more fixture announcements. So I'd like to get into a position as soon as I can of having 2 frees and being able to roll that as often as possible. So if we don't get any new information, I know we're going to have a Pep press conference, but I'm not expecting too much from that. I'll obviously assess his words and what he says, and that might push me towards a De Bruyne or push me towards a Haaland. But at the moment, with the uncertainty, and when I've already got two Manchester City attackers, I feel okay. And even if Haaland is back, it's probably unlikely to be 90.
No.
Alvarez is probably going to get decent minutes regardless of everyone else being back. So and Foden, I'm pretty content with his minutes that they should be fine regardless. So it's hard because there's De Bruyne FOMO. There's over 1 million new owners. I do really like him as a pick this week. I like it even more that he didn't play the FA Cup, didn't start the FA Cup. I don't see a world where he doesn't start this one. And if I'm seeing goals, it's going to be probably a game I need to skip watching if I don't have De Bruyne. So I'm a bit torn. There's a lot up in the air. We'll see what the pressers. We'll see if there's any leaks. But I think rolling probably suits my style of management in this kind of scenario.
Okay, well let's put your team up because there's a variety of things you can do. Do you want to just go through your whole team and captain? I know you spoke about your midfield there, Man City, but yeah, if you want to just go through your team, who's on your bench and who you're captaining and stuff.
Yeah, just benefit of audio listeners as well. So David Raya in goal, back three of Porro, Trent, and Estupinan. So good news that Trent is back because if he wasn't, that might have forced me into a defensive transfer instead. And in that scenario, I probably would have went for a Kyle Walker, which would have then obviously had a knock-on effect of not being able to have Haaland and De Bruyne later. Midfield, Foden, Bowen, Saka, Palmer. That's all fine. Happy to start Palmer against Liverpool. Up front, Alvarez, Watkins, and Solanke. And then Garnacho was a good first sub. So on paper, if I take away all the noise and I take away the FOMO of De Bruyne, the team's fine. Yeah. So I think Roland looks most likely at this point.
Yeah, there's things you can do, and other people have been in this situation as well. Because you got like 9 million or so in the bank. Lots of people have got 6 million, 9 million, lots of money, and it's sort of earmarked for Haaland money. You could spend that now and keep all of those players and still have De Bruyne, because you could move Garnacho to De Bruyne because you've got the money to do that. But the downside of that is that one of these players, Solanke probably, Palmer even, has to go on the bench. So you're removing a good player from your 11. And then at the same time, you've suddenly got yourself with no Haaland money. So yeah, in your situation, like holding is probably the best, wisest thing, isn't it? Because yeah, if Haaland's back, he'll probably be a sub and he'll get 20 minutes or so. He could even start, unlikely, but probably only get 45 minutes or so. So you're looking at Alvarez on the pitch at some point and in an attacking role. And with De Bruyne as well, he could start but come off at 60 minutes. He could come on at 45 minutes. I could see definitely more minutes and probably a start for Burnley. But as you said, if you've already got Foden, Alvarez, and it doesn't seem right putting someone like Palmer or Solanke on the bench when they've got in Solanke's case, okay fixtures. So, the reason I bring that up is a lot of people be in that situation. There's a temptation to spend that money. And it might be best just to leave it a week or so.
Yeah. Again, if I like to follow, if in doubt, do note. And if I'm really unsure, I'll probably just leave it. Because like I said, the team's fine. I think that the thing I'm struggling with at the moment is probably the captaincy side of it. Because if De Bruyne and Haaland are available, it probably means reduced minutes for Alvarez, which diminishes captaincy appeal. Foden, if I'm happy with his minutes and I'm confident that he gets significant minutes, then I should be okay to captain him, but he doesn't have too many set pieces. He doesn't have penalties. So then do I look elsewhere in the team? And there's nobody that screams captain elsewhere. So I think that could be the deciding factor when I get to a press conference on Tuesday. Yeah. If there's really positive comments on either De Bruyne or Haaland, I might think, you know what? That sounds like the best captain of the game week for me. Yeah. And then maybe that will push me towards the transfer. So it's going to be a role transfer or it's going to be a captaincy in transfer.
Yeah. I have similar thoughts. So I have a very different team to most people on account of me keeping Haaland all this time. And I've still got Salah as well. So for me, it's an easy move, Salah to De Bruyne, because I already have Haaland. So I don't have to worry about the money. And Salah, at least... Unlike with Haaland most weeks, we know that Salah's not playing the next couple of weeks at least. So for me, I'm doing that. But yes, it is the question of the captaincy, because at the moment, my bus captain, this might help your thoughts, is on Foden, because he'll get the minutes. I just think this game screams goals. Historically, it's goals. I like Saka and Watkins as well for the captaincy. And one of those is my vice captain, probably Saka. But I think Watkins at home is good against Newcastle, who are quite poor on the road still. But it's going to be that choice between De Bruyne captaincy. So well, slightly different from me. I'm definitely going to get De Bruyne in, unless someone Pep says that he's definitely out. But it's the question of the captaincy, and that's where, like you, I'll be looking at the press conference. And if he was saying, he's already said De Bruyne is ready to start, and then he didn't. But if he says, "Oh, this is the game he's going to start," and he did well as a sub in Spurs, and that was always the plan, then I've got to hand the armband to him.
Yeah, you've got to. Yeah, it's a good. I think our teams are good examples, because in my team, it's definitely not straightforward to get De Bruyne because Saka has a good fixture.
Yeah.
And in your team, I think it's a no-brainer to get De Bruyne, because if you have Salah, if I own Salah still, I wouldn't even be giving it a second thought.
No.
De Bruyne comes in and could well get the armband, because opportunity is there. And again, going back to captaincy in my team, I think back to the last game week, I just like back in the armband in the game where I think the team gets a lot of goals, and that was Arsenal. It didn't work out with Saka, but I did that over Palmer. Chelsea only scored once. So I think I'll definitely end up on a City captain.
Yeah.
It's just whether it's Foden, whether it's Alvarez, or if it's a new guy coming in, because I just backed them to score 3-4, maybe even more against Burnley. So I think I have to go to that game for the armband.
Definitely. I mean, I've seen some people can always spin stats to their own narrative. I mean, I've just presented loads of stats for midfielders as well, and I've seen someone pointing out that Man City's XG away from home this season so far has been better than at home, and then using that to say maybe we shouldn't be captaining De Bruyne or whoever at home to Burnley. And the way I look at it is just keep it really simple: good players, good teams against weak teams. That's it. Don't mess around. And so the armband is really only around minutes. I have no doubt that De Bruyne will do something in whatever minutes, but I would like more minutes.
Yeah, I when you see those kind of narratives, I always just think we're 21 game weeks into the season. What would Manchester City's XG be home and away if they played Burnley 21 times? Very different. So
well,
it's all about the fixture.
Yeah, it was the first game, wasn't it, of the season? They beat them 3-0 away. And I don't think Foden got anything. Oh, Haaland scored a brace. So there's goals in that for whoever's up front. So that makes the Alvarez, if you think Alvarez is going to get, say, 60 minutes up front, to be honest, I'd take that. The guy up front for City against Burnley, I think will do well. So yeah, you probably got it the right around with you. I don't have Alvarez myself, but I think if I did, I'd be very tempted to put the bus team armband on him if I wasn't going for De Bruyne or Haaland.
Yeah, I've had it on Alvarez the whole time. It's penalty factor. He's a good chance of being on them if Haaland's not on the pitch. But now, of course, De Bruyne, I'm sure, would be in the reckoning as well if he does play. But yeah, there's probably a chunk of the game where Alvarez is designated penalty taker while he's on the pitch. So I think back to the last game, as soon as De Bruyne came off the bench, Alvarez was set the ball down to take a free kick, and he just turned around to De Bruyne and just said, "You just take it."
Yeah.
So he could obviously do the same with a spot kick. So I think I am leaning Alvarez over Foden if I don't buy one of the big boys.
Yeah. And before we go, just a reminder to everyone to press that like button and do subscribe, and also have a look at fantasyfootballscout.co.uk for members offers. Were there any other orders? I think we've covered quite a few. We've probably almost got our heads around the fixtures to come. But were there any other orders before we go?
No, I think that's it, Joe. I think that was a really good discussion. It's helped my thought process, and hopefully it's helped the viewers and listeners as well.
Good stuff. It certainly helped me as well. Because it's really tough to get my head around it. I tried to keep FPL simple, and it's really hard when you're confronted with that amount of permutations and double game weeks, and you've got a constant barrage of content with people saying, "Oh, you must free hit here, you must that." And then I'm this little lone voice thinking, maybe I could bench boost then. And it's quite hard to navigate all of that and get your brain into gear. But we'll make a stab at that. Excellent, Mark. Thanks so much for your time. Good luck with your decision for Game Week 22. See you again ahead of Game Week 23 next week. See you soon. Thanks everyone for joining us. Bye.
Bye.